Hello and welcome to Virtual Concert Hall's live music channel. My name is Chris Au and I have with me the co-founder of Virtual Concert Halls, Dr. Anna Ouspenskaya.
Chris, thank you very much for a warm welcome. And to
Yay!
everyone, welcome to our sixth episode about the Eighth Symphony. It's great to see you all.
Amazing. So we'll be your host for today's show. This is, as Dr. Anna said, the sixth part of the documentary of Beethoven's Symphony No. 8, written and narrated by Lawrence Rapchak, created by New Media Productions Worldwide and Virtual Concert Halls, as well as produced by the Architects of Music.
Thank you, everyone, for collaboration, which has been fueled by our shared passion to bring in live performances from musicians and organizations and lots of events from around the whole globe.
And yes, I suppose I have an axe to grind with this symphony, which, while not quite as overlooked and ignored as number 4, still manages to be passed over in favor of the big ones, numbers 3, 5, 7, and 9. And looking back, it's very odd. I realized that from the very beginning, I always was drawn to the even-numbered symphonies. I already knew the pastoral number 6 from Disney's Fantasia, but when I started to learn the rest sort of as a group, it was the 2nd, 4th, and 8th that I naturally felt the closest attachment to. That's probably why I'm going into such detail with these symphonies here. They deserve to stand right alongside the others. Besides, Beethoven himself thought very highly of his 8th Symphony. I often refer to the pastoral elements in Beethoven's symphonies, and as we've seen in the Symphony No. 6, the love of nature was a major part of the Romantic movement, and this pastoral nature element is very strong in the finale of Beethoven's 8th. For instance, his main theme, it's light and fleeting and delicate, it prominently features this motif, which is basically the rustic horn fifth figure, embellished. And it resolves like so. And even though this pattern probably suggested a rural shepherd's call to listeners of the day, this finale is actually as raucous and thrilling as anything Beethoven ever wrote, requiring the utmost in orchestral technique and brilliance of playing. So there's your tranquil, serene nature, comfort music. Again, another tradition of the day blown sky high by Beethoven's explosive power. But let's look at this opening, this magical fluttery sound, which doesn't really translate that well to the piano, but it precedes each of the little figures. Listen to it. Beethoven is again creating brilliant new sounds in the orchestra, building his main theme on what sounds like an effect in the violins. By far the most familiar effect in string playing is the tremolo, tremulous in its sound. Tremolo would become a part of every future composer's orchestral language. Sometimes it's mysterious, sometimes dramatic, sometimes peaceful, shimmery, and pastoral. That was music of Berlioz, Mahler, and Debussy in that order. And the tremolo effect is made by the string players moving their bow as rapidly as possible back and forth on the strings of their instrument. But having gone through all of this now, Beethoven did not write tremolos here, but he might as well have. He actually writes a series of 6 repeated notes. You have the first violins on A, and the second violins a third below them on F. And he writes a very rapid triplet figure, 2 groups of 3 notes, like so. I play very slow. But at the lightning-quick tempo, the speed which Beethoven indicates, this figure sounds very much like a tremolo, and it propels the music in a dynamic but breathlessly exciting way. Yes, it might as well be a tremolo at that speed. And that sprightly descending motive will become very important later on. And as you heard, the main theme in the tonic key of F major and its leaping cadence in the violins moved to the dominant C major, and so did the theme, as in any good sonata movement. But this move to C major is very brief, as this delicate music is abruptly, audaciously interrupted, and F major is back with a full orchestral repeat of the main theme. So there's our first theme group, the fleeting, delicate pastoral, the sprightly descending, the cosmic blast, then the fortissimo repeat of the main theme, but now a new section based on a rugged triad figure. And this triad figure, usually descending, sometimes ascending, leads directly now to the lyrical secondary theme in A flat major. It's very graceful with that little curly-cue in the melody. And this flows directly now into the closing theme built on this progression, which I'll play slowly. And there's almost an air of fantasy about this closing theme. It's light and airy, and a gentle triplet outline below in the violins. Here now is this closing theme and where it leads. So that triad figure in the bass leads us through these harmonies back to F major, and all of it, as you hear, being driven by the furious triplets in the strings. Then an abrupt cutoff and the flickering triplets softly in the violas, and then the violins an octave higher. And now a restatement of the main theme, as in the beginning. But let's stop for a moment, because the architecture of this finale is fascinating and very unusual. Beethoven, again, clearly having the time of his life with this music, but at the same time, the level of technical invention is at an all-time high. We've just ended the first major section, and it's constructed like your typical exposition, a main theme in F major, interrupted by that massive. The main theme repeats. Now it goes into the section combined with that triad figure. Then the lyrical secondary theme. And the whirling, swirling, magical closing theme. So we have the basic outline now of a sonata exposition with 3 basic themes.
Wow.
Thanks, Larry, again.
Yeah.
I love how he outlines for each theme its own space. You almost can see different landscapes, different characters, and it leaves you intrigued and very much in a state of anticipation. What's going to happen to this theme in the next development section?
Yeah, and I think what Larry does really well is he also gives us time to acknowledge the different parts that make up the piece of music itself. I think it's easy to sort of just say, oh yeah, this is just tremolo and this is just something that composers use. But he also takes the time to accentuate how Beethoven uses the tremolo, which I think is quite genius. And because it's not actually a tremolo, it's actually these repeated notes that he writes down. And I think he uses this technique quite a bit in Beethoven's music, which is what makes a lot of music quite difficult to play, especially when he writes it for piano or like this, things like that, where like you have to keep repeating. Schubert also does this in his piano writing, which makes it also quite difficult too. That aside, Larry puts this all into perspective, and I think something that occurred to me as I was listening to this was how Beethoven's music just sounds like you just want to party to it. It always has this direction. You always know it's going to land somewhere. There's a little few surprises, and it's just so good. Especially in these movements, especially in whether it's sort of the earlier symphonies. You just know that there's like this beat, there's a rhythm, there's a drive, there's glory. You're gonna go off to glory. I love that.
Yeah, for me, a lot of times Beethoven's music feels almost like one of those really secure yet very thrilling roller coasters.
Yes.
You know you're really very well fastened inside the seat and nothing is going to happen to you. Yet at the same time, it's a thrilling journey with lots of twists and turns, and you sort of can predict them. At the same time, you are always surprised by the actual experience of going through those twists and turns.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I wonder if I think that's a technique in itself. I think that's a genuine technique in itself. And maybe we could have a DJ come and talk to us about how he is able to make his grooves so that people know exactly how to dance to, especially DJs who thrive on getting into that sort of party groove. And because that's exactly what Beethoven does so well, is that you're safe, you're in the hands of a master. And I don't know if that could be said about all composers. I think there are some composers where you're not sure how you're going to get out of this. And it does. And you're like, okay, all right. And I think that comes from maybe experience performing some of these kind of different composers. But I think it definitely affects the audience experience. And I think Beethoven was very aware of that. Maybe that was part of just the way in which he had to engage the audience to enjoy, and the patrons to pay him money. But that's definitely something that it has to always be there, and it's always there. And the jokes too. Like I love that sort of in the beginning where there's a fortissimo C sharp thing, and then no, we're back into F major. It's almost like when in cartoons where there's a clown and a child grabs a hold of its red nose and and it's just like
That's
this kind of
right.
haha jokes, and then we're back into the gist of it. I think it's just brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the music of Beethoven is so filled with all those different elements, so connected with life. It's you're in the swirl. You always feel you're in the midst of the either storm or the party or celebration or a dance or a pastoral field, you feel the fresh air um, breathe in on your skin and you can smell it. I mean, if that music is so dexterous, you can almost feel it in your hands, and not just because I'm a pianist and I love playing Beethoven. And I feel like his music is so pianistic too. But not only that, it's just all those images. He creates them so vividly, and they are so earthbound. You can collect them and hold them in a hand almost. Don't you think?
Yeah, and what the good thing about actually listening to a symphony for me personally is that I know it's not a piano piece, so it doesn't quite have the same effect of if I'm listening to a piece of chamber music with piano or listening to a piano sonata or anything, because it makes me think, okay, well, this is just I can just enjoy this. I can discover this. I can discover the style. I can discover how he does that. And maybe like when there is that piano sort of transcription that is on the screen that our audience is able to see. That's most likely done by Liszt or some genius transcriber. So you can see how you could play it on the piano, but the good thing about listening to it all is you don't like I don't know how the horns are doing that sound or the clarinets are doing that or the strings are doing the tremolo. I don't care. I just enjoy it for what it is, with this understanding that, of course, as I said, Beethoven knows exactly where he's going, what he's doing with you, and even all the little surprises sound just really fresh. It's just these little tricks that he has of continuity, but also getting somewhere with direction, that I think is really remarkable, and not too many composers actually have that sort of technique down.
Yeah, and it's of course it's driven by his desire to continue to keep going through the journey, and that's also his personality, as far as we know from his letters and everything, that he had that drive of a doer, of keep going and holding on to the next step and next step. So that transmitted, of course, into the music. But you're right, it's also the technique, the architecture of it, how the elements of the music uh, connected to each other and feed off of each other. Beethoven's music is full of energy. It's full of fuel. Definitely, there's a combustion going on
Yeah,
the entire time. Even in the soft things, it's a smoke coming out of the engine
right.
uh,
But what's
of some
what's interesting?
locomotive.
Yeah, but what's really interesting, I'm curious to ask you this, Dr. Anna, is like when you're teaching um, Beethoven to students, it's a very complex thing, because it's not just, oh, he's an angry man, or this is angry music, this is a storm. It's so many different factors. And of course, very lucky to have our piano literature of Beethoven, which is very rich and diverse. And I think, it's very difficult to sort of explain what Beethoven really is, because there's so many different facets, which he does so well. That's really quite remarkable. Do you have, what do you tell your students? What are things you kind of tell them about, or do you just get them to listen to a bunch of the symphonies and string quartets?
Well, I get them to kind of zoom into every square inch of the score. And to me, I firmly believe in it, and I think the history confirms it. But argue with me if you think I'm wrong. I firmly believe that Beethoven's thinking was rooted in a symphony orchestra more than the piano. He used piano as a laboratory and his tool to play concerts and get paid. But majority of his piano literature, piano pieces, especially the big chunk, the big mountain, the 32 sonatas. To me, they sound like symphonies which just didn't get orchestrated because he didn't have time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get the students into this by encouraging them to appreciate the fullness and the conflicting methods of producing the sounds within the symphony orchestra, because the symphony orchestra is full of instruments which don't go well together at all. They
Yeah.
are in perpetual conflict and friction with each other. Strings have their own sound production, which never matches with the winds, and they just, by definition, can never play together. They just can't. It's impossible. And the other group of instruments is always wrong.
Yeah.
So that friction within the collection of instruments and musicians, each of who honed their skills to be the prima donna, and now they're put together in a soup of 100 people and forced to play together and produce music which kind of portrays some sort of unity. To me, that's a symbolism of human society in a small scale. So those are the social aspect of it, and the sound friction aspect of it, and definitely Beethoven's thinking on the piano comes from that, I think, with all the articulation and all of the conflicting phrasing and different voices and all of that. And it's quite fascinating once you get into that. The next step, I think, for all the students and for myself, I want to remind myself, is to respect the challenge.
Absolutely.
Because it's very challenging to actually deliver
Yeah.
the 3D picture of it. It's 3D, 4D, 5D kind of picture, depending on how many voices Beethoven packed into the score at any given time.
No, I agree. And on that note, I love exactly what you said. I will just add that when looking at the microscopic details of what Beethoven's score contains, it's actually so important to follow every single marking, because there is an intent in that. Like it's maybe in the early sonatas and second movement, it might be very difficult to do those pizzicato things with the left hand, but with the right hand is in legato. Maybe very, very difficult to execute beautifully, but yet that's exactly what is demanded of you, not this fudging of, it's really got to follow it. And so that's I'll just end by that.
Fun once you conquer those challenges. Don't you think?
Yeah,
it just
absolutely.
It also gives dignity to the process of learning all those difficult things.
Yes, absolutely. It's a technical musical challenge, which is different from just a pure technical challenge and different from a purely musical challenge. So it's a wonderful thing, and of course we have Beethoven to think with that. And Larry, oh my gosh, again, this incredible way that you elucidate this music to us is very inspiring. And I want to give a big hand to our team and collaborators, making sure that we are exactly on time with the music and the score and everything. This looks so great. New media productions, virtual concert halls, architects of music, and of course the genius Larry Rapchak. A big hand to all of you.
Thank you all so much, and all of our collaborators. Thank you for continuing to support us. We are in our 5th season of producing those programs since 2020. And our community is growing, and we get more and more energy from various organizations and musicians from different countries, orchestras, educational institutions. It's really amazing to see how all of this programming is gaining traction as opposed to dying out. 5th year is a very challenging year for any organization. It's the year to prove that your message is still relevant, and it looks like our desire to bring these programs to audiences around the world is still relevant.
Oh, absolutely. I think so. And well, what what better way to end by saying that, right? Our mission and going forward, and wow. There's more to come. Of course, we're on the 4th movement of Beethoven's Symphony No. 8, and there's more parts, more exciting adventures with Beethoven on this finale, this exciting finale. So we'll see you next time for part 7 of the Beethoven 8 documentary series. Bye for now.
Bye now.